So, so let's try and start with a real question, and if we can, answer it honestly. Have you ever felt like you're not actually living your own life, but performing it as if somebody was a vague memory of you, or you were a vague memory of it, and like every choice you make, it's a little off center, as if someone wrote the script, but you didn't quite finish your lines, and it's an identity crisis. It's subtler. It's realizing mid-conversation that you've forgotten your own backstory. And maybe that's abstract. Maybe it doesn't really click, but just stay with me. I promise I'm not entirely a Jakey clone just because I'm a dude on a chair in front of a green screen. I'm also drinking, which he doesn't do in all of his videos, so a little different. Have you ever felt profoundly, desperately lonely in a room full of other people, even your friends? You could be in a room full of your friends and you feel that cold stickiness deep inside. It's a little corny, I know, but what I'm getting at is, if you're nodding quietly right now, the movie I want to talk about was made explicitly for you. And that movie is Wong Kar-wai's Fallen Angels. Man,
Cause I'm cool. Cause I'm cool.
I cannot get this movie out of my head. So, to get why Fallen Angels feels the way it does, okay, so if people have watched it, it's that cover you've seen in every TikTok or lo-fi edit, the one where it's the woman behind the guy with the motorcycle, and those couples post it and they're like, this could be us, but we never touch grass. Yeah, it's that. There will be some comparisons to Taxi Driver, I promise, but A, that's because the director is influenced by it, and B, you'll see why. To get why Fallen Angels feels the way it does, first you have to get where it comes from. Because in 1995, Hong Kong, over here, was a city experiencing a kind of existential vertigo. It's 2 years before the British handover back to China, and suddenly everyone is hyper aware of their borrowed identities, their temporary autonomy, their cultural homelessness. It's like the city's collective subconscious knows it's about to wake up from some strange colonial dream. Everyone's anxious, but they pretend otherwise. And Wong Kar-wai, cinema's poet laureate of anxious longing, is in his own personal limbo at this time. After two early films, As Tears Go By, basically Hong Kong's version of Mean Streets, and Days Being Wild, which critics at first didn't get, but later worshipped. And then after 1994's Chungking Express, Wong is riding high on his distinct style. Dreamy voiceovers, sudden bursts of emotion, and the romantic ache of missed connections. But what he does next with Fallen Angels surprises everyone. Instead of leaning into the daylight melancholy of Chungking Express, he doubles down into that darkness, creating something feverish and nocturnal and a vision of insomnia itself. I mean, look, if you just have two pairs of eyes and you just compare two just TikTok edits of Chungking Express and Fallen Angels, you see one is entirely in the daytime and one is entirely at night. And it didn't happen by accident, it should go without saying. Sometimes the curtains are just blue, but there's a little bit more to what's going on here. So, see guys, I told you this wasn't just going to be a plot summary like every other fucking video essay on YouTube these days. On a superficial level, Fallen Angel shares a lot with films like Scorsese's Taxi Driver and Nicholas Winding Refn's Drive. All three films orbit around isolated nocturnal souls who float through neon-lit cities, alienated from their own stories. And trust me, it's because they're literally me. Travis Bickle, the driver, Wong's characters, all of them. Drifters who find intimacy only in flashes and incomplete fragments, but there's a crucial difference because while Taxi Driver sees loneliness as a pathology and Drive almost deifies it like a heroic stoicism like a modern western, Fallen Angels treats it as if it's neither tragedy or triumph, it's simply you live in the loneliness. You have a small messy apartment, you accept it, you resent it, you clean it, you ignore it, and you learn its corners, and that is why he's literally me, guys. Oh god. Which brings us necessarily to the film's obsession with performance. And when I say performance, I don't just mean the stock market or me AI generating hinge lines. I mean the everyday rituals that aren't exactly fake, but aren't exactly authentic either. How many conversations do you practice in your head before sending a text, or you just completely dissociate during conversation with NPC 3025, whether you go to the store or you have to put up with a coworker or whatever, and it just works, you know? A performance at the end of the day. I mean, how many playlists have you made in your life that secretly you hope that someone just gets it, you know? I mean, there's a reason why there's so many memes about the Spotify blend function being the situationship graveyard. And yes, I know I'm technically talking about a Chinese or Hong Kong movie, but this is how I get through your guys' video essays, so bear with me. Fallen Angels understands that modern intimacy is rarely direct and usually mediated and buffered by layers of performance. The hitman's agent cleans his apartment obsessively, as if that's their version of foreplay, as if she could distill that intimacy from the traces he leaves behind. Takeshi Kanashiro's mute delinquent literally performs other people's jobs. He goes out at 3 a.m. and tries to live their lives to create these momentary illusions of purpose. You know, they're not exactly pretending, but they're rehearsing. The emotional reality is there, but again, it's almost like someone else's script. And the rehearsal, unlike outright pretending, has that strange sincerity. It hopes to someday become something real. But it almost never does, and that's the painful honesty of the movie. And you cannot talk about Wong Kar-wai without talking about Christopher Doyle, whose cinematography feels less like filming than remembering. Doyle shoots like someone desperately reconstructing dreams after waking up too fast. Blurred edges, you got the warped lens, saturated neon leaking through film grain like damaged nostalgia. And what's crazy about this was that this wasn't always intentional. They just had to shoot in very tight interiors, and just that lens and that setup was a way to give the cast and crew more breathing space, but it kind of worked out, which, I mean, if you want to read it on a meta level, like, I don't necessarily agree with that specifically, but it's there. You know, it's almost as if, though the camera itself is a character experiencing emotional instability, with time speeding up, slowing down, becoming unreliable, subjective. Watching Fallen Angels feels less like experiencing a story than remembering someone else's memories, fragmented and looping in emotional glitchiness. Like, there's a scene halfway through the film where Michelle Rice's character meticulously cleans the bed of a man she secretly loves. It's not seductive, it's not comforting, it's just this pure longing, almost cringe, but that's the point. It's this ritualized performance of intimacy she knows won't happen. Her loneliness has become something sacred, her heartache almost religious. And then there's Takeshi Kanashiro laughing and eating ice cream in someone else's business, someone else's life. It feels comedic, but it isn't. It's this quiet desperation of someone trying on identities like their cosplay and hoping one of them is the fandom they're always meant to cosplay a part of. But we all know that's not going to be the case, and yeah. Finally, the film's ending. Two strangers riding silently on their motorbike at night, and yes, this is the part where you could say it's the meme. They don't speak. Language isn't sufficient. What's communicated is the sense of two people briefly holding that same loneliness, and maybe that's enough. Or maybe it isn't, but it has to be. because the film And here's the thing about a film like Fallen Angels, it doesn't end when credits roll, it keeps happening inside people who watch it, a slow motion after image, if you will. You see it echoed in Barry Jenkins films and Refn's later work, and the young filmmakers chasing that neon melancholy on TikTok. You read those letterbox reviews of 23-year-olds discovering it at 3 a.m. and maybe drunk crying about it and posting about it later. And, they give that film 5 stars and then they leave that one-line review where they think they're absolute comedians because it's some sort of like gay sex joke or something. I mean, I don't go on letterbox as much for a reason. I'll just keep it there. But if you watch it young enough, it seems romantic. And then you come back a few years later when you have a little bit more life experience, and it feels sad, but like inevitable. It's just the emotional commute your heart does when you'll still have heartbreak and, you'll have situationships that flings fizzle out weirdly, but it's less dramatic and you just kind of get used to it and you get over it a little bit better. There's the afterlife of a Wong Kar-wai movie. I mean, that's it right there. It evolves like you do. And so maybe the reason I keep coming back to Fallen Angels is because it doesn't try to fix the loneliness. It respects it. It makes peace with it. It says clearly loneliness isn't always solvable, but even unsolved, it can still be meaningful. It's the kind of art you return to at different ages to measure yourself. It's the yardstick for your soul. It's quiet, it's secret, but it gets the job done. And that kind of art that understands small, almost mundane melancholy, where that truth initially hurts, but then your heart grows calluses. You don't really see that a lot these days. I know it's a bit of an old head complaint, but they really don't make them like they used to. And I'm not just saying that because people watch blockbusters. I mean, look at the trends over the last few years. You've seen less blockbusters, but you've seen more A24 and neon movies, and you still don't have anything that really captures that initial lightning in that not sake bottle, it's just, you don't find it. You really don't. And sometimes you weren't even looking to find it, you just sometimes being remembered briefly by a stranger or someone you used to see or someone that tried to leave you better than they found you, and life just happened, man. That's the whole point. And maybe that, at least for tonight, is all we get.